Welcome back to Tarot by the Bay. I'm David. All right. Donald Trump suffered another court setback. And it seems to be mostly what he is capable of doing. This is in regards to the lawsuit that was brought against him. It's a civil suit by police officers and other folks that were injured or suffered damages because of the Capitol riots on January 6th. Donald Trump's defense was that his speech at the Ellipse was in his official presidential duties. And it wasn't. The court rules, no, it wasn't. That was you campaigning. And because you were acting as a campaign candidate and not as the president, that will go through. There was another point that they were debating, and that was Donald Trump not calling off, not sending out a message to the insurrectionists for 3 hours to tell them to go home. That was in his official capacity as the president of the United States. So they cannot, the people suing him civilly cannot pursue that angle. And to me, that makes perfect sense. I can follow that logic. Because when Trump's saying, fight for your country, he wasn't the president and he had already lost the election. And that was a rally. That was a political rally. Now, when he's in the White House and he has the ability to tell, Capitol Police to, or get reinforcements in or tell people to go home, that is not a candidate. That's his duty as the president. So I want to look at the energy around the ruling and about the civil lawsuits coming up. Entertainment purposes only. How are these civil suits going to stack up against Trump? This card's on the bottom, but it wants to leap out. So let's take a look at it. It's setting the stage for additional lawsuits. I think there's already like a half a dozen folks on there, but there's going to be more people, probably more police officers. I don't know if it'll be a class action suit, but there's going to be more police officers and emergency personnel jumping in on this. All right, it's the victory. The folks that are bringing this suit have won a victory, and they're planning their next moves and pursuing this trial. This was a great victory for them because it's fair, it's just, and the last few readings I've had, it looks like we're finally starting to see some accountability, because them being able to pursue Trump in a civil manner is all about accountability and holding him accountable for his words and his actions. Trump is trying to say that, and his lawyers are trying to say that just because he said something doesn't mean that he should be held financially responsible for it. Yeah, it does, actually. Yeah, it does. Crossed with the hangman. This is, again, different, looking at things from a different perspective or willing sacrifice. It's both. In that no prior president, from what I remember, has been civilly sued for something like this. And Trump, through his speech at the Ellipse, basically threw these police officers and such under the bus. He sacrificed them to help with the insurrection. But in the end of the day, the people that are suing Trump won their case. They got an unprecedented ruling, and now they're going for the next wave. I think there's going to be another wave of people that join the lawsuit, because now the heavy lifting's been done. And as far as, can you sue the former president, yes or no? The answer is yes. Let the floodgates open. In the past, we have the King of Wands. I think this is just, this could be the President of the United States. I usually use this card for the DOJ, but this is supposed to be the man in charge who takes action on things. And this is about holding Donald Trump accountable for his actions or his inactions. Now, they didn't get the whole thing, obviously. They got the Ellipse speech, but they didn't get the calling off the protesters part. And again, I'm okay with that, because the protesters part was his act as president. Now, that protesters part is what the lack of telling to go home, that's a dereliction of duty. And that dereliction of duty is what led to the second impeachment of Donald Trump. And it was the appropriate thing to do through that. Can you civilly sue for it? Apparently not. But it was that dereliction of duty that led to the second impeachment. And it's also why it's stunning that people are still wanting to vote for this guy. Dude, come on, man. Come on, America. You're better than this. I know you're not, but you are. Oh, current situation. I think they're trying to decide what's going to be the best. Oh, okay. Here's the thing. With this lawsuit, you have to. Trump's under all sorts of attacks. With the New York civil trial, he's under multiple criminal investigations. What can you reasonably get? What's the next step for this lawsuit? You can't take him for everything because he may not have much to give, despite the fact that he's a self-proclaimed billionaire. It seems that most of his cash flow comes from grifting off of his supporters. So it's not going to be up for the lawyers to determine who's got good cases, who doesn't, and how do you maximize the payout for the folks that have winnable cases. And you're not going to get a $10 billion settlement from this one. But, where am I going with it? As I ramble on here, it kind of reminds me of the Alex Jones thing where they got $1 billion settlement, but they're willing to settle for like $80 to $100 million because, and that would be a perfect example of this card. Yeah, you can sue for $1 billion, but you won't get $1 billion out of the guy. He doesn't have that. But you might be able to get $100 million, and that will go a long way for medical bills, psychiatric bills, disability, as well as punishing Trump. So, how do you find the sweet spot of helping your clients and deterring Trump and cronies from doing this again in the future? So this civil suit, the other part of this civil suit it's a way to dissuade future insurrectionists and insurrectionist leaders, because it's not just, we either take over the government or we get off scot-free. No, there's going to be punishments that go with this. Overarching energy, it opens the floodgate. I was talking about floodgates opening. Here they are. Gates are thrown open. Come on in, folks. Join the lawsuit party against Donald Trump. Trump is going to be buried in litigation, and this is just going to be another one of those litigations that just absolutely crushes him. Yeah, and then the lesson to be learned is, do you take the settlements? Will Trump settle? Now, Trump doesn't like settling anything, because it's all about appeals. And he will, of course, appeal this all the way up to the Supreme Court. And I think the Supreme Court, as much as they want to help him out, they can't in this case. The laws are pretty clear. The boundaries are pretty well defined. The nebulousness is that, Trump was the president at the time when he gave this speech, but the logic shown by the district court that made this ruling is reasonable. It's wise, and it's defensible. And I think the Supreme Court, despite biases they have in there, they would have a hard time overturning this, or even an appeals court would have a hard time overturning this. This will go up to the Supreme Court because, of course, it's Trump, but I think it's going to be upheld. So then, does Trump, does he settle? That's the question. Do they settle on this one? The outcome on this one is the Eight of Swords. This might get tied up this will probably get tied up in the courts for a while. And I think that's what this is indicating here. This is just going to get tied up in the courts for a while. And really, the folks doing the litigation, they have to stay the course. If they want to see the money, they have to stay the course. And yes, this is going to get tied up in the courts. And Trump may not even be alive by the time this civil suit plays itself out. That's a distinct possibility. Maybe that would be an interesting one to ask. I don't know how quickly this will go through the court systems to the Supreme Court. It's not. It'll get appealed, but I don't think it'll go to the Supreme Court until at least 2024 and maybe 2025. I think Trump will be able to kick this thing down the road a little bit there. This is going to just be a slow process. But they got a very important step on that one. All right. A couple Four Carters. We'll ask how Trump is feeling about this ruling. We'll ask how the victims are feeling about this ruling, and then we'll ask if like Trump survives or the Supreme Court rules on this. Okay, let's go. How's Trump feeling about this ruling? The emperor. I was the president. I was fine. Got the news happening fast. Temperance. Page of Wands. Yeah, he's gonna try and go back to I was the president, and I can't be held accountable for this. This was folks doing things on their own. I didn't tell them to do it. They did it on their own volition. It's kind of the 6 one way, half dozen. This is like the heads I win, tails you lose type thing. He's going to continue to say he's innocent. He had no control over folks, that it was a spontaneous movement of these people and they moved quickly. Yeah, he gave a speech and gave the messaging, but they did it on their own volition. He's not going to take accountability or responsibility for this. So this loss in the courts, it doesn't even affect him. And again, you can look at that emperor as also being that Trump wants us to go to the Supreme Court. The temperance card underneath it is, they'll do the right thing for it. He might try and actually, now that I look at the 8 of Wands and the Page of Wands, he might try to get it to the Supreme Court quickly. That actually makes sense because, again, he's got 3 Supreme Court nominees up there. Thomas and Alito are under fire. So his best shot is getting that to the Supreme Court as quickly as possible, because from his point of view, he has 3 people who owe him in the form of Brett Kavanaugh and Comey Barrett and Gorsuch. So he thinks if he can get it there, they're going to rule in his favor. Okay. Which, of course, the means I have to read on that. How do the plaintiffs feel about this ruling? Okay. I think they're tempered. They know that probably their lawyers have told them, okay, we got this is the first battle of many. Just take a wait and see approach, because they know it's going to get appealed and move forward. Some of them might be a little bit financially strapped on here. I think they don't necessarily want to compromise with Trump, but at the same time, you gotta make the smart play so that you're maximizing your money and your values here. Yeah, here we go again. Yeah, they're planning their next moves. What's really the value, the worth? What can they reasonably expect out of this? They don't want to get screwed out of it, but they have to be pragmatic too about moving on with their lives. Get what you can. Don't be greedy, but you don't have to fall over for this guy either, and then move on. The case is just going to move on. I think they know they're in for a long battle, and battle they will. Some folks may drop out, some may not. It's got to be exhausting to fight this fight all the way through. But I think they've got the advantage on their side. Let's see what the Supreme Court has to say about this. When this goes to the Supreme Court, and it will, how will the Supreme Court rule? Or what's the energy around their room? Yeah. Ace of Cups just flipped over. What's going to be the Supreme Court ruling regarding the civil lawsuit against Trump and company? Oh, Six of Cups. Wanting to return the favor, but now I'm going to do a six-carder. Wanting to return the favor, but having to enforce the law. They want to help Trump out. They really do want to help Trump out. But there's this, there we go again. This card's underneath here because things are going to continue. They know this is coming. And they want to return the favor and play nice with him. But there's this pesky thing called the law that just gets in the way of things. How annoying, What Trump did was foolish. Now, granted, the Fool card is New Journeys. And again, civilly suing the former president of the United States is not a thing in this country. This is pretty new. But what Trump did was foolish. And they can all see what he did was foolish. He's also helped launch the careers or capstone the careers of three people on that court. And maybe this is why that card was underneath the plaintiffs, is that they're afraid that the Supreme Court is going to rule in favor of Donald Trump. They have that concern because that put three justices in there, and Thomas and Alito could be 4 or 5. I think they're really concerned that this conservative court is going to side with Trump. It's unknown. Oh, there's secrets going on too here. Seems to me that one of the Supreme Court justices' wife had a lot of interaction with the January 6th insurrection, to the point with those new ethical rules, somebody may need to recuse himself. And that somebody would be somebody who would be, who's been quite a supporter of Team Trump. So, yeah, that's the mystery. What's going to happen with folks that have some culpability? Will they be forced to recuse? Backroom dealings. A lot of discussion in the court. This could also be Federalist Society money for the remaining 3 folks that are on there. But yeah, there's going to be a lot of debate and discussion on this one. I'm being cynical. This may not be money related. There could be just a lot of backroom discussions going on with this case. Out comes the Wheel of Fortune. I think it's going to go forward. I think they're going to say that this case can go forward with it. Yeah, this case, despite the conservative nature of the courts, it's a 6-3 conservative court, but I think Clarence Thomas is going to have to recuse himself, and that could make it a 5-4 and the 3 or a 5-3, and I think the 3 are the ones that work out the deal with the other 5 so that they're not going down partisan lines. I suspect the court's going to rule that this case can go forward. And maybe it's at the point that this comes before the Supreme Court that a lot more of the truth of Donald Trump's actions have come through, and the court is not feeling obliged to protect Donald Trump. In the end, will Donald Trump... Okay, what's the energy around the final settlement of this case? What's the energy around the final settlement of this case? Assuming that the Supreme Court says this case can go forward, does it get settled? Does Trump lose? Is he even alive when it comes to the courts? Not to be morbid, but if we see the death card or like the Ten of Swords or something like that, or the world card. Probably like the death card. Let's see what happens. There's your payment. Yep, it's gonna pay out. Yep. This'll end up getting paid out. 3 times or 4 times. This one's showing up in every reading. Yep, they're gonna just keep on going forward. There's your, I think, when the Supreme Court rules on this and it can go forward, Trump's lawyers are going to talk with him about settling the case. Doesn't have to admit culpability, just settle the case. I'm not seeing anything that shows death over here. It'll happen quickly. Once the Supreme Court does that, Trump will settle, and it'll happen quickly, probably because he doesn't have, well, two things. He may not have the money, because he's spending all this money fighting other court cases, but, you have to be in the country. I think there's going to be a lot of stuff going on with other court cases with Trump. King of Wands, again, taking action, plannings. Yeah, I just think that his lawyers are going to say, hey, you know what? You got to settle this case. Your best bet is to settle this case and be done with it. That, or they're just looking at the money and trying to figure out what their best course of action is going forward. I do think that this case will be settled. I'm not saying death about Donald Trump here or anything along those lines. Certainly, if he passed, then the estate of Trump, Trump fights everything, but his estate might just, if it was run by conservators who are looking for the best interest of the estate, settling would be your best bet. And just not spending all the money on lawyers, because you're going to lose anyways. And you'll probably lose more money. So settling is your best course. You save money on lawyers. You save the plaintiff's money on lawyers. You don't have all that time and anguish and all that stuff. He could just not be a crappy person too. You get to keep your money in your helicopters and your planes. But he couldn't do that. All right. That's it. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for supporting my channel. I appreciate it. Thank you for all the kind words and everything you do to feed the YouTube algorithm so my video makes it out to a wider audience. To the new viewers and new subscribers, welcome to the channel. Glad you found us. Hope you found this reading entertaining and insightful, and I'll catch you on the next one. Take care.